Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe here with me, my co-host Stan.
Hello and greetings.
And we have another Legend of Huma video. Last one wasn't very successful, but we got to finish this podcast. So here we go. The next little bit of the story continues with Magius guiding Huma and Kaz out of a battlefield, just as the lines are cracking. And once with Magius, Kaz decides, ooh, Mage, saved me. I hate him. Guys, Mage. Seems to be their lot. I'm joking. Actually, Kaz soon has pretty good reason for being peeved with Magius, who does things like disarming them even though they're supposed to be allies, and other stuff like that, and being sardonic, sarcastic, and pretty darn suspicious. In a private chat with Huma, he describes how he underwent the test, and he prophesied his own death during the test, and could not accept it, so he forsook the order. And it's only after he went through this test that he decided it's too barbaric to pitch this to people. Now, the idea of the test is that it's supposed to give you upgrade your magical capabilities to a higher level. But the thing is, the only way you can do that is by undergoing this very dangerous test. And there's also the fact that without it, you're unlikely to achieve the discipline and skill needed to control those higher magics. It's the only way. You can't just not take the test and get access to those magics. It doesn't work that way. Now, what Magius is whining about is that mages shouldn't have to undergo this barbaric test, and that it's too barbaric for him. Well, the idea is primarily to give you access to the higher magics. But they can't just go bibbity bobbity boo and you get it. No, it doesn't work that way. But Magius wants it that way. And let's say they could. I don't think they should, to an extent. Now, okay, I will argue that what Parsalian did after the test was evil. But the actual test itself is what it is. It's a metaphor for life, for the final transition from child to man, or from girl to woman. This is what it's for. And this transitioning process is very much an important one. The Jedi had their trials, mages have their tests. And mages fussing and whining about it, complaining about it, is him simply justifying everything he's kind of done, not for Takesis, but right before that. It's basically him trying to justify his own departure. And because the real reason he left the order was because he was cowardly. He wants to prevent his own death. That's cowardice. But him claiming, well, I left because I couldn't accept the test. No, Magius, you left because you're a coward. That's the truth of it. Claiming moral indignation at the test is simply him trying to soothe his own ego, his own vanity. All is vanity. Accept it. Then you can let go of it. And realize you don't need vanity. Magius does achieve courage by the end of the story. He does. But right now he's still trying and thinking only of running away. And he ended up so afraid of dying, he even agreed to go work for the twisted and perverted Galandracos. Because why not work for Takesis if you're afraid of dying?
Oh, about that soul.
Yeah. But the thing is, he eventually grew disgusted with Galandracos and how perverted he was and left. But this doesn't change the fact that he did many misdeeds and he was wrong to do what he did. And much as we want to try to excuse him or whatever, or justify Magius, there's very good reason for why Kaz might not like him, or even Huma might feel a little disconcerted and disgusted. But interestingly enough, Huma doesn't feel much disgust. Actually, he tries to understand and even kind of pities his friend, which shows how great a guy Huma is. Because, well,
He's Huma.
yeah, not just anyone could say, so basically, you're a hypocrite who claimed to be morally outraged at this final trial, a trial of manhood, that you agreed to undertake and you signed for, only to then get morally outraged about it, or so you claim, but really it's because you were afraid of dying, and then you went and decided to go work for the devil. Not just anyone could say, wow, I feel bad for you, man. Wow. I do think that there's incredible moral fiber in Huma. He does not get the praise he should get in universe or out of universe, as he should be a much bigger icon, because the character is just awesome here. Like, kudos to him. That said, after a brief stay in which they are basically prisoners, and it's when they're forced to leave that Magus confesses, oh yeah, I worked for Galen Dracos. But they're forced to flee because Krynn' forces have finally found them, hit the area, and Magus decides to basically get rid of the pesky little dragons currently bothering him. And so Huma is separated from Kaz and Magius. Seems to be his fate. He's always separated from everyone. The Huma you are searching for is not in this castle. He's busy bravely fighting elsewhere, and has already rescued the princess, apparently. So you're too slow. That is, if you're Magius, the Solamnic Knights, or Kaz. But anyways, as to Huma, he ends up in Ergoth, of all places, the wonders of teleportation, and ends up running into Guy Avondale, and this guy is very surprised to find a Solamnic Knight. Naturally, Huma is very wounded, is sick, and so they decide to take him in and help him out. Avondale is very interested in the military information Huma has access to. Huma, in turn, learns that the Emperor of Ergoth has no interest in the war. He's too busy hiding in his capital city of Daltagoth. Which means that with the best troops of Ergoth hidden behind the city walls, Ergoth is entirely dependent on Solamnia holding out against Takhisis. What do you think? One of the most powerful empires around. Let's not help. But you have Avondale, who is helping, but most of his forces are former farmers, former tradesmen, former merchants. You know, peasants.
How brave and courageous.
Yeah.
You lead an empire.
Yeah, but Bennett the Third has not been in, like his immediate predecessors, has not shown any interest in risking his life.
All right, his senior staff needs to launch a coup.
Yeah, I agree. And what's worst is that Avondale is given very limited authority. Even though Avondale is a man who's more interested in domestic affairs and in reforming the empire than he is in war. But he is a brilliant strategist.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah, so he's very limited in what he can do. If he requests too much, he'll be executed. So, and he's worried for his men as well. Because a lot of them are ill-fed, despairing men who, ironically, despite their nations being former enemies, a lot of these men hero worship the Solamnic Knights. But they might not be the best men to fight in an actual battle because they're kind of... some of them are green. Not all. But they're also not the best equipped for this situation. And they're supposed to save the world.
Ah, boy. This empire was...
Ergoth, yeah.
Ergoth seems useless.
And it's a former powerhouse. In some other book series, you see it being a formidable fighting force.
It might as well have surrendered to Takhisis.
Well, it hasn't. There's still pockets and regions that are ready to fight. It's just the Empire is disunited at this time and has a idiotic pretender on the throne. Huma, meanwhile, pleads to go southwest to the mountains because he knows that there hope can be found there. And Avondale is at first a little reluctant and unsure because Huma's fairly sick, and you don't send a sick man into an area said to be haunted by evil dragons and dark spirits.
How would you like your Dead Salamnic night? Fried or...
Plague-ridden. Yeah, and they can't really give him too much medical help, and so Huma has to heal the good old-fashioned way, because all the clerics seem to have died to plague in the local area.
That's certainly odd.
And here's the thing, the plague is moving from key region to key region, typically going after mostly regions with clerics in them. As Avondale says, that's pretty damn suspicious.
No kidding.
And he states, there's definitely human cause here. And it's being directed by someone with intent. And ironically, I know which character that is, but he's a humongous, self-righteous psychopath. And trust me, Huma's going to have to come to blows with him. But this is actually one of the cruelest things currently going on. And the plague is, I think, supposed to be modeled after the Black Plague, so this is a horrific way for people to die. And it's mostly being cast on clerics who just want to heal people. So basically, selfless monks and priests and nuns who have dedicated their lives to helping others. And who have gone to the front lines in this war to heal the dying and the sickly. So this is cruel and unusual. And I would argue this is a massive series of war crimes. And trust me, the character participating in a lot of these, there is a contingent of fans who tend to justify his actions.
There's no justification.
Well, yeah, but he's had a rough life at one point. And the woman he loved scorned him for, well, he says scorned him, but actually she liked someone else better. She fell in love with someone else rather than him. So, you know, he was at one time very sad. Oh, sure, he killed the other man. Killed her. Killed a lot of people. But he felt bad once upon a time. Hasn't since, but he's felt bad once upon a time. Yeah, like I said, he's a psycho. Actually, a good comparison, in my opinion, with him would be someone like Jack the Ripper. No, like he is that nutty and that wicked.
But he had a hard life.
Yeah. Actually, his life's not been that hard in comparison to other characters. I mean, Raceland's standing over there, tapping his foot. I'm joking.
And then
even Magius and Huma, who lived in absolute abject poverty because of this man's actions, are basically tapping their foots impatiently.
You have Sturm over there rolling his eyes.
Yeah, because Sturm had it rough. But anyways, enough condemning a hypocrite. The thing is, though, Huma ends up being offered Ergoth because, well, they're going to bring him as far as Ergoth, then he can go southwest. That's what I mean. He's offered, all right, we'll let you go off on your own, but first let us escort you to Ergoth, which is in a major Ergothian location. And his response is, yeah, okay, sure. Which, given that he could have been a suspect of cowardice, dereliction, and whatnot, as far as they knew, because he's very far from the front lines, this is a remarkably kindly act. On the other hand, the reason they believe him is because he brings news from the war front and admits that he's lost. And he was never trying to be an Ergoth, and he has no idea where he is. And so they're confused. He's confused when they first meet, so they kind of believe him. And he's covered in war wounds. So they basically look at him and go, yeah, okay, telling the truth. But on the other hand, once stories get out about his adventures, some of the men start to hero worship him. And Huma's uncomfortable with that because he's fairly shy by nature, as we've already seen in this book. So, weirdly, much as I love Kaz and Magius as a character, honestly, sometimes I like Huma when he's on his own more than when he's with his friends. It's just Huma's a character who's really interesting on his own. Like, I like seeing him interact in unfamiliar situations. And I would almost prefer that to him dealing with familiar faces and familiar locations. Weirdly enough, I just like seeing him as a fish out of water and having to learn to swim out of water, so to speak, and figuring it out and pulling it off. I really do like the character. At the end of chapter 11, though, he's tracking down a shadowy figure. And that's where we basically leave you off. And like I said, I really do like these chapters. More the Ergoth stuff, because that's lots of lore, there's lots of details, and we learn about this murder mystery that's going on in the background, which is a subplot, but it's going to come back as a major plot. So it's interwoven with the main plot of the story, but it's a subplot. And it's been there since almost the first chapter. So it's one of those things where Richard Knack has done something very brilliant with his storytelling here. And it's something that I think a lot of writers could learn from. And I'm also going to go so far as to add, I wonder if he's ever written any Conan pastiche novels. I hope so. Because I'd be interested in reading any of them that he might have written. If he has. And if he hasn't, he's got to get on that and start writing some Conan pastiches. Because this idea of weaving two plots together is something very Robert E. Howardian, even Tolkienian.
Definitely, because...
Yeah, he does it with aplomb and skill. And what I also like is that we have here something all the same that's unique. Now, as we all know, fantasy... The Bronze Age mostly ended around 87. This came out around that time. And yet, in complete defiance of the subversion and the total self-destruction of the fantasy genre that began to take place around 89 and forward, Legend of Huma stands up and remains very traditional and classic. And arguably, probably the best written fantasy after all of Tolkien's works and Howard's. So, yeah, we're going to continue our book club, hopefully next week, by reading another 70 pages, going all the way up to chapter 18 or so. And then we're going to resolve that major murder mystery plot, and along with a lot of others, over the course of another bunch of pages. So do stay tuned, and don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button as though you were Huma taking out Takesis. And also, do check out our Substack, where we've got a whole bunch of fantasy articles and serial novels you might enjoy. So do take care.